do need at least know that much. Let's see what we got. Okay. So the first thing I hear is the dreaded I can't start fan motor cry. So, and the way it sounds is, I don't think it's going to be a lucky capacitor issue. Sounds more like a locked up fan motor to me. So this one's not going to be any fun. Okay. Got the handy dandy Nebo light. And looks like they use duckboard collars on sheet metal applications. And don't bother to slit them and dovetail them in. The wires going through them. Look at that. Tell you, the new construct field just never ceases to amaze me. This motor is locked. It will not turn. At all. So, she's gonna have to have a motor. So let's look it up. Give them a price. Tell you, I don't see the model and serial anywhere in this. They usually don't put it on a removable part. It looks like they have this time. See if we can figure out what motor's in it before we take it apart. Try to get them a price. Show you one more thing I noticed when I was just looking around at these wires. And it's not going to hurt anything on the neutral. If it starts doing that to that black one right there, it's going to be a real problem. This is one of those motors with the mounting brackets built onto it, so it'll require a band, belly band, a lot of people call them. These aren't too bad to get apart. You don't really have to unwire the whole board. This thing here comes off and it'll kind of swing up out of the way. But let's go talk to the customer about it and see if they want it fixed. All right, they do want it fixed, so we got it out. Looks like 3/4 horse. We had things warm in just those few minutes of trying to start. So I made a call and got the motor on the way. I'm going to get it apart right quick. All right, so I don't have the tripod with me today, so I just yanked it apart. Didn't get any footage on that. Three-quarter horse, Gentech motor. So, boy, it is really hard to turn. She's had it. So we got one on the way. I did not have a, I'm reluctant to put anything else but exactly what was here. So I did not have a three-quarter horse multi-speed with me. I'm not going to put a half in here. That's just too small for this setup. It's a 4-ton, and all those returns, and they got them choked off with those fingers in there. So we straightened some of that out, helped it a little bit. It wasn't completely blocking, but it's just better if you put a box, even if it's a short box. Doesn't have to be a huge plenum. If it had like a 4-inch box and they were coming into the end of that, and then a big square opening, you know, a big rectangle opening for the box on each side, it would really help it breathe better. But anyway, and then I looked at the supply up there. It looks like they got a lot more return than they do supply, which doesn't hurt anything. But anyway, I'll be waiting for a few minutes here. All right, and when you start to raise these doors up, and you see all this stuff on the floor, sometimes it's worse than others, but it really doesn't take you but a minute to just pick it up. And you know, those little things like that, they will really add up. The customer sometimes is aware of them, sometimes they're not. But if they've ever been in their attic, you can bet that they've had that happen to them. And they may walk up here with a vacuum after you leave, thinking, well, I got to go up here and clean up behind them. And then they'll be impressed when they don't have to. Might not get it perfect, but just get it back. But I'm just going to raise this up and go outside and make a few phone calls and check with the rest of the customers for the day. Probably going to be about 30 minutes for the motor to get here. So we'll chunk this one. All right, so it's raining. So another thing I went ahead and set up to do while we're waiting is the customer said he's had to put Freon in it before. I haven't hooked it up or turned it on or anything, but I just brought him over here, stuck the umbrella up. Something to do for a few minutes. I did make a couple calls, so just waiting for her to get here with the motor, and we'll get these people back in business. But I have a suspicion that we're probably going to have to add some refrigerant to it, just based on their past experience so far. So hopefully we get our motor pretty quick, and hopefully it stops raining. It's slowed way down. But I haven't started using the new gauges yet. That's still a 380 or a 360. And I got a 380 and a 480 for my truck. I just haven't started them yet. And they're supposed to be a lot more water resistant. But I like that Supco umbrella, so I'm going to take advantage of any opportunity to use it that I can. All right. So, did not have a band kit with 4 ears on it, so we had to purchase the OEM motor, and the ICP distributor locally here did not have one in stock, so this one was bought straight from Carrier. So I bet you I don't want to see that dadgum price, but nonetheless, had to have it. So we'll see how shocked it is, how shocked I am when I do see it. I'm sure it's pretty high. I just like Trane or anybody else, you know, if you're not a dealer and you don't sell their product, they're gonna rob you on parts. So I fully expect that. Anyway, these, I don't know what I'm thinking. Didn't bring a drill up here, but there's not that many screws. So probably, I think 4 or 6 to get the doors and all back on, and the board. Maybe a couple in that capacitor bracket. But one thing about an OEM motor, it's all nice and exact and nothing to really align. You just stick it in there and tighten it down and adjust your blower wheel. And she's plug and play from there. So that's all we got to do at this point. Just put this thing centered up best as we can by eye. I always crank these bolts pretty good because they actually kind of grind a little indention into the shaft. The wheel's not too bad. Just a little bit of out of trueness to it, but as you can see, the new motor is free. Spins well. So let's get over here and put it in. All right. So we did have to stick this plate back on. So nothing could run into the house in the attic. Down here in the south, occasionally we get squirrels in the attic and stuff. Seems like I was able to get this thing to sit up out of the way. Tell you what, I'm gonna bend some of these in. I'm bending them in instead of out, kind of in the direction of the airflow. I don't know how much that's going to help. It's certainly not going to hurt anything. Look to me like they could affect the airflow a little bit. Probably not enough to do much. But try to give it a little more of a chance if I can. This one, not light, but as I've said many times, ICP furnaces are really easy to work on. Tell you what, they had these wires, rubbing those bottom pieces over there pretty bad. This is the only really fun part. It's getting that lined up. Almost, just like that. You can feel it. And it starts to head the correct direction. Kind of pops into the slot. Right, now we need to keep this out here a little bit. And get this mounted back to it. I think maybe if we were lying horizontally in a crawl space under a house, I might not be bragging on how easy these furnaces are to work on. I'd probably be whining about the fact that it failed anyway, but manufacturers for the largest part are, you know, with motors and stuff, they're just buying them. So can't really blame Carrier or ICP on this. I guess Gentech is the one that made the motor that failed, but it took it 9 years. I mean, it ran 9 years. That's not so bad. Should be one more screw for the bottom down here. All right. Let's be careful with our wires. And take it on in where she goes. We got 2 screws that go up in there. I don't know why they mix these up, but they got some 5/16 head screws on a couple of things on the board, and then the blower here, as well as the door that goes over the blower, has 1/4 inch headed screws in it. But that's the worst thing we have to do is change the size on the nut driver a couple times. I guess we're in pretty good shape. So let's go ahead and use a new capacitor, even though the other one might be good. I don't know what it was. Don't recognize that brand right off. But it was a 10 as well. So I'm going to put this USA 10 in it. Was under it. It actually even says BLM. I'm going to assume that means blower motor. All right. So cool is the top one from here. There. Heat. This bottom one. And if I remember, Park was underneath. Spare. Yeah. It's actually got a spare 1 and 2 on this board. So obviously they use this board on a couple of different motors. Bundle these in a fashion to where the door isn't smashing them too bad into the board. I mean, the way these doors fit, you really don't have a lot of room, and you're almost better off letting all your wires hang down below the board. For some reason, I just don't like that. I don't know why. So the way they had these before, they were in those teeth or dovetails. So I bent those in and turned the motor one quarter of a turn away to where these wires would be tighter. I've done these kind of furnaces like that before. That's why I did it again. So what I'm going to do, before I put this door back on here, I'm going to take my jumper And I'm just gonna go from red to green right here and watch it work. Watch the blower come on and off once before I put this cover back on. All right, so I'm gonna push the door switch in first and make sure it doesn't run, which it's not. Okay, I'm gonna go to green. And there was no continuous on the board, so it's either running the heat or the cool speed, not sure which. Let's see if we hear the condenser come on. Oh yeah. So I'm just gonna do the W one time as well, make sure the induced draft comes on. I probably won't fire it up. Oh yeah. All right. Looks like we're okay. Everything's okay. I don't know how much it helped to bend these in, but it just looks so bad with them sticking out all the way. And the very back ones I left, they're beyond the hole, but tried to get some of them back in. Maybe it'll slow down a little bit of the fighting air turbulence that's going on there. So let's get this door back on it. Okay, so let's go to the thermostats and turn them both on. We'll test the heat and the cool. That EWC zone board door was laying down here, but I went ahead and stuck it back on. So we got the green light flashing in the furnace. Everything should be okay. Let's fire it up and check it all out and see. Okay, I was able to take my umbrella down, and I feel like it was kind of interfering here with the subcooling accuracy anyway. It's not really warm enough. It's 57 degrees here today, so I'm not crazy about subcooling, but it's missing a little bit of refrigerant, you can tell. And look at that. Man, that's a lot. 15. I haven't seen a product that high before with the subcooling target. But I'm going to add a little bit. And we're probably going to drop light on it a little bit. We know the subcooling takes place in the condensing process out here. It's just not hot enough to really be purely accurate. But the manufacturers, or at least Train, says 55 degrees, and we can set subcooling accurately. I just go by what I've seen. Oh, that was a leaf. I saw something. I thought something alive back there. So the customer had mentioned something about refrigerant before. Is the reason I wanted to be sure and see where it's at, make sure it wasn't half empty or something. But it is a little cold today, so I need to get this out of the cool mode and back into the air mode for them. Now the reason I flip that jug is I always open it one last time with the vapor side up, you know, the jug flipped up, just to get the liquid out of the hose. I just open it for a quick flash. And that way this yellow hose doesn't sit there full of liquid in my truck like these red ones do. So I'm going to leave it right there. little bit of guesswork in this, in my opinion. I just don't like the temperature we're dealing with here. So I'm certainly not going to evacuate the whole thing and weigh in the charge and try to measure the line set. It's just not in the cards here today, so okay. For some reason there's a piston laying down there. Gummit, brand new cap with no O-ring in it. Go grab another one. Right here, another one in the truck here. It does have an O-ring in it. I don't care what they look like when they build these houses, they just slap them together. Put all this stuff in. Alright, so we tested heat and cool and everything's okay. Except this mess right down here in this low spot. I see trees that are floating out there. Broken off. Anyway, so I'm headed back. And I came this way, and doesn't look like I'm gonna go